Hello, everyone. Today we are going to be talking about David Cronenberg's The Fly. Be afraid, be very afraid. And joining me today, once again, is mythical, legendary author Owen Quinn.
I'm afraid. I'm very afraid.
So we are both
Excuse
really
me.
big fans of this movie.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I would say if it isn't a masterpiece, it's damn close.
Well, do you know what got 93% on its release? 93% high rating. And it was like, what's that? Six minus three minus 100. So whatever that is, because I'm really shit at maths. 7% didn't like the fly.
That
7%.
that's just silly.
Yeah.
They were
High.
probably
I need to know high.
they were
I
pro-
do not know.
they were probably so disgusted by it that they just couldn't give it marks.
Probably, probably. I remember the reaction to that particular scene, but you could be quite right. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a few scenes. So I was allowed watch horror movies from a very young age, so I had a good tolerance for gore. But there was so gore never really got to me that much. But there was the odd thing that kind of would get to me, and The Fly was one of those. And
See,
I
it's not really gore though.
well, just the thing.
Kind of fun,
I think it's
if
the
you
fact
think.
that it's just all so well done and
Yeah, yeah.
believable, and we'll dig into it as we go. So the movie starts off at some kind of science convention where Seth meets the reporter Ronnie, and he takes her back to his place, saying that he is working on something that's going to change the world. And she follows him back to his place, and he does a little demonstration of his little teleportation pods, and they come to an agreement that she'll document his progress. They'll keep it secret until Seth figures out how to teleport a human. So at the moment, they can't. He can't figure out how to teleport organic matter. So she documents the whole thing. They get into a romantic relationship, and Seth decides very hastily to teleport himself, even though we'll get into the details of that in a bit. But he decides to teleport himself when it was perhaps not the best time. Um, and a fly gets into one of the telepods. He teleports, and then the computer's confused and decides to splice the two. So he comes out the other side changed. Although it's not like so in the original Fly, the change is instantaneous. In this one, it's gradual. What do you think of that change, Owen?
For the original's great because it scared the life. No, just with the fly's head and the claw, and then the very end scene with the human head on the fly in the web,
Yeah,
was great. But for if you're gonna do a remake. I think in this sort of era as well with John Carpenter's The Thing, it has to be built upon and use the progress in special effects and story writing of the time. So for me, The Fly is like a multi-layered. I don't even think it's a horror film. To me, it's more multi-layered story, and it's a lovely. I can't even think of the word parallel for other things, but
yeah.
well, the actual story, Cronenberg wasn't involved in the actual original story. Do you know who it was? I still surprise you. Mel Brooks.
I did
Did you
hear.
know Blazing Saddles?
I heard some connection between Mel Brooks and this, but
Mm,
I didn't look into it too much.
yeah, so he produced it, but he made sure it didn't say on it a Mel Brooks movie because people automatically think it's a comedy,
Yeah,
which is a canny move, I have to say, because people would have.
that's a wise
Um,
decision. Yeah,
Yeah, The Fly is a really powerful film for its time, and they've looked at it and looked at the subject matter and genetics and sci-fi sort of at that time, still early days. So for me, it's a really, really strong narrative. that was cleverly done and utilized things of the time. And I imagine doing it today. Please do not remake it, anyone. Leave it alone. Never, never, never. It's grand.
It would be
But
it would be a
it would be a disaster.
difficult one to top. It'd be hard to top this.
Yeah, yeah.
You would
Like,
have to do the same thing they did with this, as in you would have to change it and do something different rather than
yeah.
trying to beat what has already been done, I think.
And there's nowhere really to go elsewhere on that. I mean, we had the original fly head and the fly hand swapping, but this one, because they're fused at the genetic level, as you say, it's a gradual change,
Yeah.
but it starts with the personality changes.
I I think like cuz I really like the original as well, and I think
Mm,
the instant transformation works in its own way. So if you have the instant transformation, it can be effective in the way that you do your science experiment and it's like, oh fuck, what have I done to myself? And that can
yeah,
be pretty effective. In this one, it's gradual and it's like you do your science experiment and all seems well, and then it's slowly revealed that something went wrong. And I think both work well, but I find this one more compelling. The
yeah.
gradual deterioration of Seth. Would you
I
agree?
think I think in this one, it's. I remember the first one. I remember the fly had a hood over, or like a towel or something, or a tea towel over its head to hide itself.
Yeah,
Um, in this one, I think it's the connection between him and Gina Davis's character that makes this compelling. Um, because I'm going to throw a couple of names at you who were offered the role but turned it down. And when you hear these names, you'll go, Jeff Goldblum was born to play this part, 100%.
oh, he's
So originally offered to Pierce Brosnan,
no way.
John Malkovich,
Right.
John Lithgow,
Oh, Jesus.
the new Dumbledore. I can't picture any of those three. And
No.
Michael Keaton and Richard Dreyfuss were also considered for the role, but it turned out obviously that Jeff Goldblum got it.
Yeah.
And yes, there's certain roles you can never picture somebody else doing. And Goldblum just, I was a very early fan of his with Invasion of the Body Snatchers, Buckaroo Banzai. So I was aware of his work. There was always something different, magnetic. Those eyes, his delivery of dialogue was different. And it was perfect for the character of Seth, because Seth was outside of normal humanity. He wore the same set of clothes. He had the same set of clothes in his wardrobe every day, so he didn't have to spend any time thinking about what he was going to wear. Very insular, very private, no friends. And it's just when you go, oh, that's Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah.
And then when you see the gradual change, you actually see what a really talented actor he is and why he's so loved today.
Yeah,
That has never been from him.
he has a lot to do in this movie. Like he's got a lot of different modes he has to perform.
Mm,
And yeah, like you said, I can't see anyone else doing this role. I am When I rewatched it again on Halloween and then rewatched it again for this, and every time, like blown away by his performance. I think he's outstanding in this movie.
yeah, absolutely. 100%.
So his character Seth, he's very obsessed with his work, and as you said, he never mentions friends or family, and we know very little about him outside of his work. Seth's work is his life, basically. Um, Even at the end of the movie, he literally merges with his work. Um, but I think it was a good choice to do it like that, where we don't know a whole lot about him. He just seems to be all about his work, and we don't know anything about him outside of that.
Mm. Because to me, he was empty. As you said, he's obsessed with his work. I know people like that in real life who are obsessed with their work.
Yeah,
Um, that never changes, no matter what. They don't have a private life. They don't have girlfriends, stuff, boyfriends, whatever. Which is a sad thing. But for this, I think that's what makes his relationship with Veronica so good, because she brings him out, and in a way, she brings him out of a safe zone
yeah,
into this disaster. But she will obviously would be the what we call the damaged person at the end of it.
Yeah. Her
But
Gina Davis's performance is also really good in this.
yeah, that's it. Only especially at the end when which we'll get to, those scenes are so powerful. And do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
What happens at the end, it's her when she finds out, when she sees him for the first time after he starts changing. It's her reactions to it, which is our reactions
Yeah.
as an audience. Um, and it's it's how, if somebody that you loved ended up like that, I'm going to use the allegory of a disease. That's the reaction because you're not expecting it, especially if they've sealed themselves away for weeks and don't talk to anybody, and then you see them for the first time. It's that shock. But I think Gina Davis really sells this movie,
Yeah.
and her acting is just amazing. If it had been a lesser actress, no, it wouldn't have worked. It's just the chemistry and the magic between her and Jeff Goldblum for this, and between the characters, but it's also in the writing. But I think the right people were picked for this movie, and that they are the soul of it, and she's the connection that the audience has in her place in order to bring us into that world.
Yeah. 100%. The one thing that's been brought up a lot with this movie is the special effects. Uh,
Mm.
the special effects are fantastic in this movie, and I think they still hold up. The effects were done by, I believe, Christopher James Wallace,
Yes,
who I think had a shot at directing a sequel. Is that
I
true?
think Wallace. I think Wallace actually did do the sequel,
Yeah, yeah.
The Fly Two. He did, yes.
Um, but yeah, the effects in this I think really still hold up.
I think it's also, everybody was used to Muppets and Star Wars characters and that sort of creature. And there was a lot of werewolves around at the time, a couple of vampires, but there was nothing like this.
Yeah,
It's the evolution of the creature right till the end that I think really gets the audience. I mean, the whole thing is just, it's perfect. Well, the fact that it's a sequel just shows how perfect this one was. Because the second one does not have the magic, and I know that's a phrase that's used very loosely with a lot of people, but this one, there's definitely a magic to it,
yeah,
and that's why you can sort of look at it 40 years down the line and go, "Damn, that was good," and still feel sorry for them at the end.
yeah, yeah. Because like Seth he goes on quite a journey. Like he
Mm.
starts off as the kind of science nerd, and one one choice I really like that they made is that after he teleports himself, obviously the fly got in the machine. He doesn't know any of that. But after he teleports himself, initially he feels physically fantastic. He feels better than ever.
Mm.
So he gets that kind of, that peak. And then after that, we see him deteriorate. And then, he gets worse and worse. But I really like that choice of having him initially feel fantastic. And then it makes the decline really effective.
Do you know what I mean? He's buzzing when he comes out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Was that a pun?
I'm the pod. Come on.
we'll
He's just
give
been merged with a fly, so he's buzzing.
we'll give you that one. uh,
Yeah, it's. I think that's for me. I was doing a bit of just looking up things about flies, and I had to say the most disgusting creatures I've ever read. That just, oh, I mean, yeah, there's one in the house I'd be chasing it with a newspaper or a tea towel or something,
yeah,
like I did actually the other night. But when you actually look at their biology and their believe it or not sex drive and what they do, they are vile creatures.
yeah.
So if you're gonna get spliced with something, don't be picking that one
Don't pick a
because they
fly.
are. Don't pick a fry because they're literally gross. Um, but
Yeah,
from when he starts changing that sort of, he becomes the athlete doing the gymnastics
yeah. He does
in his,
gymnastics
his warehouse,
all over his
and
apartment.
he
Yeah,
Yeah, and he makes love like a freaking train. She's knackered her. Jesus, give us a minute.
I was
But
tired
everything's
just watching
heightened.
it.
Oh, sure, that's the story of my life. um, but get a rub of the relic. Um, but it's this heightened thing, and then there's an aggressiveness with it.
Yeah,
And it's that scene, the first scene that really throws me. He goes, he wants to reproduce, which we didn't realize, and he goes out, gets the prostitute,
yeah.
and he breaks your man's wrist in the. And I haven't seen this film in a while. It's all from memory because I know it so well, and that's just one of my favorites.
Yeah, so like
But that
we'll
wrist
just
snapping,
yeah, so what happens is
to this day.
Seth gets frustrated that Ronnie can't keep up with him. Who could?
I know.
So they get into an argument, and he wants her to go through the telepod because he wants her to be like him, full of energy
Mm,
and all this kind of stuff. But she's afraid. Naturally, you would be. And he calls her a drag, and he kind of splits with her then. And then he goes in search of someone who will perhaps go through the telepod. So he ends up in a bar, and he he places a bet with one of the arm wrestlers in the bar, who's a big lad. You wouldn't expect Seth to be able to beat him, but he bets him $100 that he can beat him, and then he gets to take the woman home if he does. So the arm wrestler says, "Yeah, right, easy money. Fuck you." They sit down and they do the arm wrestle, and then yeah, as Owen said, we get that arm snap where the arm wrestlers, because Seth is ridiculously strong now, and
mm.
he snaps your man's arm, and you see the bone protruding, and then he takes the girl home, um, and they do the business, and he wants her to go through the telepod, but she's afraid also. Obviously, this is a very strange thing. Um, and yeah, she's like, I'm afraid. And then Seth goes, don't be afraid. And that's when Ronnie appears to give the iconic line, be
Yeah.
afraid, be very afraid. And then the woman leaves, and then Ronnie and Seth get into an argument. But yeah, there's a lot of great stuff in that sequence. The arm snap looks great, doesn't it?
Yeah, and the blood running down and the bones coming. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm getting chills just literally. Oh, it's right up my spine.
Oh,
But I mean, there's that in the other scene for me. But even when you look at that scene, the guy is holding his hand, his arm, screaming literally, and the
yeah.
sweat's pouring off him. No, it's little details like that.
Mm,
He's sweating, and Seth had been flicking peanuts at the glasses, shot glasses along the bar. And then there's that shot when he throws Ronnie out. She's just standing alone in the corridor at the warehouse in Longview, and the attention to it is just amazing,
there's even
amazing.
so when Ronnie catches Seth with the woman, and the woman leaves, Gina Davis just gives this little look on her face, and it's nothing too big, but it's just this little look that shows that she's really hurt by this, and
Yeah,
it's just little details in the performance like that I think are
yeah,
fantastic.
they're amazing. And I mean, when they start arguing, it's like you can see in her face looking like Seth doesn't know he's been fused with a fly, so he just wants them all to go through thinking they'll be like him. So he doesn't even realize what's happening to him.
Yeah,
And she's on the other side looking at him going, you were so lovely, and what happened? Where did all this come from? But the only common denominator is you went through the telepod. So no way am I going through it, and no way is your wee woman going through it because something's not right.
yeah. um there's a scene in the coffee shop where he's explaining that he feels like the teleporting was like a purification thing, that
Mm.
he described it as like coffee going through a filter. His performance in that scene is great. He's like so hyperactive, and um,
That's the Goldblum, but isn't
yeah,
it? Like in Jurassic Park and the Grandmaster and Thor Ragnarok. That's just the Goldblum touch, and he's like that in real life as well. If you've watched The World, according to Jeff Goldblum, he's just
he's
yeah,
like that.
that's the way he goes about all the time. It's like you're fucking awesome.
Yeah. um. So Ronnie susses that something's wrong because she finds these strange hairs on Seth's back, and she snips
Yeah.
them, and then she sends them off for testing. And when she's telling Seth about this, she says that the guy at the lab is having trouble identifying the hairs, and that the conclusion was that they're more than likely insect hairs. And Seth's like, "What the fuck?" Um,
Yeah.
and he gets really defensive, and he gets really in her face and says, "You're just jealous. You're trying to bring me down," and all this kind of stuff. Um, but the hairs on his back were freaky. These big coarse hairs growing out of his back.
Mm.
Even when she's cutting them with the scissors, it's like it's not
It's
so easy.
hard to cut them.
Yeah,
But yeah, that's also like funny. We were talking about this today in work. Excuse me. Was to do skin cancer checks in our place. And we're just talking about stuff like that. It's like suddenly you find something on your body that shouldn't be there, and it's like that. And the doctors can't identify it, and it's that initial fear,
yeah,
and you don't know what it is, and it's that fear, and you always seem to turn on the people that are closest to you, so you get snappy with your closest one. Say somebody's there with your wife or something,
yeah.
more than often than not, you do get snappy because it's that fear, and you sort of take it out there. So
Also,
when looking at things like that,
also, I get the impression in that scene that Seth is kind of in denial. He just doesn't want to hear it. He doesn't want to believe there's anything wrong.
which is also part of the process of finding something medically wrong with you,
Yeah,
because at the end of the day, this whole thing started because he gets motion sickness when he travels. And he wanted to do the teleport system around the world, so nobody had to get motion sickness anymore.
yeah,
So his desire to cure an illness has created something new. The irony is, it does actually work,
yeah,
but there's no filters, and that's
yeah,
why Mr. Fly is in there.
yeah. I mean, his teleportation thing does actually work. It was just one of those. It was one of those things where, in the moment, Seth was very reckless, so he had a bit of alcohol on him. And
Yeah.
Ronnie in that scene she went off to deal with her ex boyfriend, Stethus,
Yep.
and yeah, so she kind of goes off. She doesn't really explain why she's walking off, but Seth then is paranoid that she is cheating on him with her ex boyfriend. So the mixture of paranoia and alcohol make him hastily do this experiment on himself, and
Hmm.
then he obviously pays a heavy price for that. But there's nothing actually wrong with his machine itself. It was just he wasn't very careful.
It's the human nature. It's the arrogance of humanity.
Yeah, I
But
actually
but this,
I quite enjoy stories of people meddling with science and it going wrong. I quite
yeah.
enjoy those kind of storylines.
But the other element there is that Ronnie's boss, Stathis Borans, is a nasty piece of work. He
Yeah,
does he does love Ronnie, but he's almost as rude and ignorant to her as the the change in Seth was
yeah.
slightly earlier. So she's getting both sides. So there's really bad taste in men for a start, and people do not be not don't be drinking and jumping into telepods or doing anything silly, because that's what happens when you drink. That's
they
David
should
trying to
have
tell you.
a they should have an ad. Don't drink and teleport.
Don't drink because you could turn into a fly.
um. Yeah. So they have their argument. They split up for a bit, and then Seth ends up ringing Ronnie and saying that
Mm,
he'd like her to come see him. And then she does. And then when she arrives at his apartment, she sees him in a really bad state. He's no longer in the physical state he
Seth.
was, where he's like really athletic and doing his gymnastics. He's using crutches to get around, and he looks almost unrecognizable. Um, I really like
Yeah.
Ronnie as a character because even though she's been through all this with him, she still really cares about him, and she's still very kind and caring towards him. And when she sees how scared he is, she wants to
Yeah.
help him. I think she's a great character. The only thing I don't like is that she hugs him even though he's got all that puke all over him and stuff. I don't think I could.
Well, aren't you just the loyal boyfriend,
I'm
fiance, husband?
I'm heartless.
Great. You're heartless. I mean, it is an allegory for terminal diseases.
Yeah,
At the time, it was actually a lot of people thought it was an allegory for AIDS,
Yeah,
but Cronenberg said no. It's great that you just picked that up. But he says it's all about all terminal diseases. So what you're seeing is Seth is now in chronic stages of a debilitating disease,
yeah,
and Ronnie's seeing it for the first time, and she's afraid because she loves him so much.
yeah,
So it's a shock, and that's is reflective of real life. You have to watch the people you love deteriorate, and while the skin and everything makeup is really good, um, there are people of like uh, skin cancer, for example, or leprosy, some disease that can literally disfigure the no their looks to sort of throw their loved ones off. But she thought her hugging him is actually the right thing to do
oh yeah,
in that
100%,
scene,
100%, yeah,
100, because it also reminds us that these two people were meant to be together, and the only thing is destroying their lives is the fact he jumped the gun too quick and jumped in the telepod. Now he's dealing with it.
yeah.
Um, was he, just to remind me, was the scene where he's pulling his teeth and stuff out before that or after that?
It was before, because he doesn't um have it on screen here. Actually, he before he looks that bad. So before she arrives and sees him in that
Yeah,
state, he it's just after they have an argument, and then he starts squeezing his finger, and his fingernail comes off,
yeah,
and then he looks in the mirror and his teeth start falling off. So yeah, that's
yeah,
a little bit before.
yeah. I mean that even when he squeezes his finger and the stuff comes out, it's that wee look in his face of surprise and shock.
I
Oh,
love that
what
scene
is going on?
where he goes into the bathroom and he's like, "Holy fuck, what have I done to myself?" Because, as I
Yeah,
said, his fingernails are coming off, his teeth are falling off, and he sits on the edge of the bathtub and he's like, "Am I dying? Like, what the fuck have I
yeah.
just done?" And that look on his face when he realizes that, you know, something really bad is happening here.
And that's down to Cronenberg. I think it was a very collaborative movie between the two of them and Cronenberg, who just looks, and I think it was a lot of working together, and it's just the tiny details
Yeah,
that make this sort of extra special. I mean, I was walking about in two crutches today. I was trying not to laugh there when you said about the two crutches. I said, "Oh, that was me today." I said, "I'll probably turn into a fly after this is over."
do you still have
But
your teeth at
um,
least?
I still have my teeth, yes, and nothing else falling off. Thank God. I think they've had enough fall off. But when you look at that, you know this is a horror film. You know it's a love story, and you know it's an allegory on how people deal with terminal illness.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
at its core, it's a tragic love story.
yeah, yeah, that's never amplified more than the final scene. So when she sees him as he is
Yeah,
on the crutches, um, it's a real shocker to her. And this boyo, Stathis, does not help the situation at all.
no,
All he's interested in is making her his lover, and making money then when he finds out all about Seth.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So
Scumbag that he is.
yeah, so we find out, you know, just after the halfway point, maybe a bit more, that Ronnie is pregnant with Seth's child, and she is really scared about what exactly she's going to give birth to.
Mm.
So she talks to Status about it, and she decides that she's going to have an abortion. Seth finds out about this. He overhears them talking about it, and he ends up kidnapping her. So actually, when I was watching this with a couple of friends years and years ago, um, one of my friends couldn't finish it because it was too much for them. They're not a real big horror buff, but
Yeah,
the scene they quit at was, do you know when he jumps through the hospital window?
yeah.
They just screamed and covered their face and said, "No, that's it. That's enough for me." So that's when they tapped out.
I thought they would have tapped out before that.
Yes, same.
I'm sort of going, hold on, did we not miss a bit there? Probably the most important bit, where he suddenly realizes he's not actually dying, he's changing.
Yeah,
Um, and then we have that delightful scene, which which I can see in my head as clear as the day I saw it last. But that's when I was saying earlier on about I was looking at what a fly's life cycle and stuff. That was the reason why, because he starts adapting a lovely way of eating his food, where
I
mm,
I that I cannot eat watching this film. I just can't. That just it turns my stomach. The idea of having to like so he has to puke on his food to dissolve it and soften it up before he eats it and
it,
oh
but then in the original, there's one scene I love all those movies. I was watching the Monolith Monsters last night. The B movies were fabulous. There is a scene where the wife brings food to the scientist, and he has the towel over his head,
yeah.
and he bends over, and you can hear the sucking sound
Oh
of
yes.
him eating the
It's
food. I mean,
disgusting.
for that, yeah, but for the 50s, or it was supposed the 50s, that was like a brave move. Even you look at the thing from another world in the original,
Yeah.
they're talking about, oh, there's somebody in there with a decapitated head, the dogs have been bled dry with the blood. I mean, there's a lot of horror there, but it's off screen.
Yeah.
And you can only imagine, all you hear is the sucking sound. But Cronenberg obviously went further and went, here's what was happening under the towel. Children, get your cookies out. Um, so that scene, but it also shows a change in Seth, because now he's embracing it. His scientific experiment has brought him something new that the world needs to know.
Yeah.
So he has figured out at this point that it is a fly that has molecularly or genetically fused with him on a
Yeah.
molecular level.
He even
So yeah,
so he kind of initially feels physically really good, then he declines, then he starts to kind of go up again and feel
mm,
physically more capable. And he describes it as a disease that has a purpose because he feels
yeah,
like the purpose of this disease is to give him all these capabilities. Basically, he's crawling up walls and all this kind of thing. So yeah, he ends up feeling like it's a disease with a purpose.
yeah.
Um,
And the fact he does TikTok 40 years early and records every stage of it.
yeah,
And going, and this is the fun part. This is the cookery part that you'll never see on Kitchen Nightmare. And he that does the vomit thing. And you can see in his face that sort of, oh, I'm really embarrassed that I did that.
yeah. Oh, his
You know,
performance is just brilliant.
yeah. It's like, and I'm going, no, I'm not. See, if you ask me for dinner, I'm not going. I'm sorry. No,
Yeah,
not going. But
no,
it is, again, it's just that small detail of, oh, I'm sorry, I've just done, no, he vomits over his hand, and
yeah,
I start looking at his face. I'm really embarrassed about that, but
yeah,
that's how I eat now. So it's those different, those new changes that are making him for the better, and he's on an upward cycle again.
yeah,
But still hasn't forgot the telepod
yeah,
is still a success. So he's going to try and figure out, how has he created two major discoveries, or is it one an accidental offshoot of the other, and they're both connected?
yeah. And Seth, so parts of his body are falling off. Ronnie's present for when his ear falls off, which is
Yeah,
pretty gruesome and shocking to her. But he doesn't he keep his body parts in his little bathroom
he does.
cabinet?
Yeah,
Yeah,
in jars of water,
yeah.
as you
um,
know.
so Seth takes Ronnie. He kidnaps her from the hospital, and he he asks her not to abort the baby. And I'm just
Yeah,
finding it in my notes here. Yeah, he
and
says, yeah, go on.
I was saying, I mean, when he went into the hospital, he's now changing again. There was his makeup, his skin, everything got worse, but it's still him.
Yeah,
And he's still the man that she loves, and he's begging her, please don't get rid of the baby. It's really tragic, and you can see the conflict in her face, because she had the dream of the maggot being
yeah,
born. Yeah, so you can sort of
yes,
see it from hers, and it is our bad boss status that she turns to and goes, I can't do this, blah blah blah.
yeah.
Um, but it's so emotional.
Yeah, because like
So emotional.
she does love Seth, but
Yeah,
because of all this stuff that's
yeah,
going on, it's it's really unpredictable for like what's going to
mm,
happen. So she's really just terrified.
yeah. He's the love of her life. She's pregnant. He's dying, and now he's not dying. He's going through this. She's lost him. She knows she's losing him to whatever this thing is. So she's facing losing him and having to raise a baby on her own,
Yeah,
not even knowing if the baby's going to be normal or not.
yeah. And when he takes her from the hospital, I really like this conversation they have. So Seth says, he's saying, please keep the baby. And he said, the baby might be all that's left of the real me. And
Yeah,
it was really sad seeing and even though he's got all this makeup on and stuff, like you really sympathize with
self
him.
it.
Like the way he's performing it you know,
Yeah,
is still kind of
because I
comes.
mean, I think he knows he's dying, and he's going to leave this kid as sort of his legacy. Um,
I don't
'Cause-
know if he thinks he's dying or just that he's going to change into something completely
yeah,
different. So human Seth will really have nothing left but this baby.
yeah, who continue on in his name, but um, I think that funny. I always thought in my head there was only two gross out scenes, and then I forgot about the final one
Oh yeah.
with when your guy comes, and here we go, Owen's disability week. When Stathis comes, and I go now, not at the time. I didn't sympathise or empathise, but I can empathise now. And just to be clear, my leg isn't in a glass jar in the bathroom. It's in an incinerator. It's in an incinerator somewhere. Not happening.
I would have kept it
Um,
in a glass
but
jar
that
in the fridge.
can you imagine put that in your fireplace, like people walking in saying, "Oh, you're a lovely home. Why have you got a leg on your fireplace?" Oh, that's the husband's. Where is he? I don't know. He's away out, limping somewhere.
Oh, and you left your
Um,
leg behind again.
you left your leg. Don't know where he is. He's legless. He's in the pub.
So Seth's plan
Um,
is
but that
pretty.
scene where
Yeah, go for it.
no, I was gonna say, Stathis has good intentions in the end, even though he's still a twat. Um, but he, but no offense, if somebody like that had kidnapped her, jumped out from a big window, and he had seen the tapes, it wouldn't be a gun I'd be taking in with me. It'd be
Yeah,
a fucking bazooka
yeah,
or a machine gun or something. Um, but that whole sequence, I think, is essential to the film. And just when you think you've seen the worst of everything, this is the scene that really cements that Seth is gone, but he isn't really because he'll do anything to protect his kid and his partner.
yeah.
And what he
What's
does,
sorry? What's that line
yeah,
he
no, go ahead with
says?
that.
He says, I was an insect that dreamt he was a man, and now it's time to wake
That's
up.
it.
I love that
Yeah,
line.
isn't that just beautiful?
I think
That's good writing.
that's so good.
That's good writing.
So Seth's plan is pretty horrifying. He wants to take Ronnie to the telepods, and he wants to merge himself with Ronnie and the unborn child to make one
Yeah.
being. Just the idea that's fucking horrifying.
Mm,
So he attempts to do this, and Stathis, you know, we've seen him in the film that he's, as you said, he's an arsehole basically, but he does genuinely care for Ronnie, and
yeah.
he tries to help, and he interrupts the process, and then that's when we see that Seth literally merges with one of the telepods, and I love that imagery, like he just merging with his own invention. Um, and then do you want to talk about what happens to Status?
Yeah, it's before I think it's before it is before so Stathis comes in. Gina Davis is in the telepod, get me out. And at that point the transformation is complete and the mutated creature finally emerges. Um and Stathis has a gun and is just frozen in fear. And the fly does something that you've seen in the movie, but it's not applied to human terms. So I think I can't remember which order this was in. He vomits over the hand, and the hand melts, a la Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark melting. And then he does it. He grabs his leg, and you see the thing twitching. I thought that was a good touch.
Yeah.
The and I said alien. The monster is the mutant. The head's twitching. It's almost as if looking for the right spot to do the next bit, and then he vomits over his leg and dissolves his foot and the bottom half of his leg, and he's squealing the house down as you would.
Oh yeah.
I was all right. I was like full of unconsciousness at the time. So I said, nah, you're all right. I actually said to the anaesthetist, she says, do you want an epidural? I says, a what? An epidural for, I says, no. She says, you'll just be slightly aware. I said, no. I said, you fill me with so much morphine that the only way I'm getting out of that operating theatre is on the end of a string. That's how I wanted to be brought out. I said, no epidural. There's something wrong with you. No. So, but that's the grossest thing. Um,
Yeah.
is when you actually see, and you sort of, not that I look at it and empathize, but you sort of go, that's really bold for its time. Because all you had right up there was werewolves slitting throats and stuff like that and
Mm.
biting heads off. But to do that is more terrifying because you think if that thing got out and managed to do what he had planned with him and Gina and the baby, where would it end?
Yeah.
Because all he had to do is vomit on you and cripple you, and that's you're helpless. Now it would be revisited in the sequel,
Yeah.
in the Fly 2, but it's the most horrifying. When I think of all the horror movies of the time, that's probably the most horrifying thing of all
Yeah.
is it being vomited on and your body dissolving right in front of you.
Oh yeah. The
I think
idea.
it's also looking at his hand when he sees his hand just melting. It's powerful, again, powerful stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and you go, "There's no way out of this. How do you get out of this?"
Yeah.
But as you said, he jumps in the telepod, merges. Gina managed to get out, but he merges with the telepod, and that leads you just when you think everything's over and done with to for me, the most powerful and dramatic scene in the entire movie. And I actually can't think of another way. A lesser director, a lesser actor, and a lesser writer would have had a very lame ending,
Yeah.
but this is just so powerful.
I
You
thought.
can't help but emphasize or empathize.
Yeah. I thought the ending was perfect.
Mm,
That was a perfect way to end the story. So, Seth has merged with the telepod. He's almost completely fly like, like he's
yeah.
unrecognizable, and he he wants Gina Davis to put him out. Ronnie, he wants Ronnie to put him out of his misery because he's like,
Mm,
well, this has just gone so bad. There's nothing really left to do. So he grabs the shotgun that she's holding and he places it against his head, and she's like, no, I can't do it. I can't do it. But in the end, she knows she has to do it.
mm,
And Ronnie has to be the one to put Seth out of his misery. And
yeah.
narratively, that was a great choice.
Yeah. Thematically as well, because when that happens, you've just seen the fly dissolve a man's parts of a man's body, but it's still Seth. Seth is still in there because he asked her to kill himself. So now you're in the territory of assisted suicide.
Yeah,
Um, it's the performances and the lights are all going and the smoke's going, and then she pulls the trigger and you just up close see it explode.
yeah,
Um, and she says there's no happy endings. We talked about the mist last time about its downbeat ending. This is, I think, the greatest downbeat ending ever, but it had to be,
yeah,
and it's one that when you leave that cinema, you're sort of going, Jesus, what would I do in this place? Could I do that?
yeah.
You probably could if a big fly's coming at you, but you know what I mean. If this is somebody you love, and even though
Yeah,
they look completely different, it's
yeah.
still him because he asks her to do it.
Even he's got those big, sympathetic looking eyes.
Yeah, the Goldblum eyes.
Yeah, and then the fact that he puts the shotgun to his head kind of
Yeah.
acknowledges that there's a bit of Seth in there, and he knows that
Mm.
this has gone way too far,
Yeah.
and yeah, there's going to be nothing but suffering from here on out. And I love that idea of, the loved one has to put him out of his misery.
Yeah. Or is it that the fly did take control when it killed it dissolved the guy's parts, and it was Seth in the last vestiges of death. Sorry, folks, I can't even speak tonight. Um, took back control
That's what I'm
of
getting
his
at.
humanity, the
That's
last thing,
yeah,
and that was it.
that's what I'm getting at. Yeah, that
Yeah,
he is, you know, the real Seth is in there still somewhere.
yeah,
But yeah, it's all great stuff, and the score for the movie throughout is really good.
yeah. Very. I think also the imagery. No, when you do you see that? No, in the movie posters of the telepods.
Yeah,
Because I was looking just before we started. There's an actual comic sequel as well, a comic book sequel,
I didn't
and it
know that.
follows. Yeah, it's called Outbreak, the Fly Outbreak. It's trying to fix something in movie two, um, and their comic covers. I have the collection in my collection. Are just they're stunning,
Yeah,
but they are the telepods with that black background, the green sort of light,
yeah,
and they're just beautiful. They really are. But I think this film, there's a word that I really should use from the start. This is a beautiful film
yeah.
in every sense. Every sense.
I would describe it as a grotesque masterpiece.
Yeah, yeah. And seeing the scenes. Now, as I say, I haven't seen it in ages because I watched it that often. I know it the back of my hand, but it's you. I remember those little nuances in performance. Um, I remember the gross out scenes. I remember the complex relationship. It's there, and it sort of burns it into your head.
Yeah, I was the same when I rewatched it on Halloween. I was like, I remember all of this. You know what I mean? Because you know the way sometimes you revisit a film and you're like, you don't remember half of it, but I remembered
Yeah.
almost every scene in the movie.
Mm.
So if you have not seen The Fly yet, go watch it. It is fantastic.
I think it's one of those things. You know, what I keep saying about the monster should like speak eloquent evil. Obviously, it doesn't speak in this, but it's not just a monster. It's still a human.
Yeah, I'm
So
like,
you've got that aspect where again in a lesser hands, it would just be a man in a rubber suit.
yeah. Whenever I'm writing a monster or creature or some kind of villain, like I always have to, you have to make sure there's more to it than. I mean, you can have your just pure evil sort of villain that doesn't really have much of a motive beyond their evil. That can be fine too. But
Michael Myers
yeah, I mean
coming
that
into that.
that's compelling in its own way. But
Mm,
I do like when your creature has a lot to them in terms of motivation and their own wants and needs and desires and all this kind of stuff. And the fly certainly has all of that.
yeah. What defines a human soul? What is humanity?
Yeah.
How strong is it when in that sort of situation?
Also, the designs of the telepods I really like as well. Pretty iconic.
Mm, yeah,
I heard
yeah.
originally they were supposed to look sort of like phone booths. Um, but so we even have that line where Ronnie goes, "What's with the fancy phone booths?" or something along those lines. But apparently they were supposed to look like phone booths originally, and then they changed the design. And I'm glad they did because they look really fucking cool.
They're iconic, really, aren't they? And
Yeah,
yet, and still, when you think it now, they know well that Mel Brooks sort of supervised the whole thing. He really had an eye for this stuff too. Outside of Blazing Saddles and Young Frankenstein, Spaceballs. I mean, he was involved in that as well. So it's just you can't fault it really.
yeah.
So
Do
whoever them 7% must have been sleeping or drunk or something.
one thing I did see as well is that there was, I think, more than one alternate ending. Have you seen anything about them?
Alternate endings? No.
Yeah, there was one where or was it alternate, or just kind of like they elaborate on the ending? So there's one I seen someone talk about, and they showed some clips where Gina Davis's character Ronnie has a dream about her baby, with butterfly wings and all this kind of stuff, and I don't know, it just didn't really fit at all. So if that was an idea they had, I'm glad they didn't go with it.
Yeah, now funny. I'm just googling, and on YouTube there is alternate sort of like a variance on the "Help Me," no, the original's ending, but
Right.
I'll not play it.
Yeah.
Um,
There's
but there
also
is
it's
something.
one thing I forgot to mention is that the movie is very efficient. There's not much wasted time. There's not much wasted scenes. Everything
No
has a
pun.
no pattern. Everything has a point and a
Mm.
purpose, and it flies by. No pun
Yeah,
intended. But
God, you're buzzing the night. No flies on you.
no flies on me. Oh, and you're starting to really bug me.
Hack bug off.
um, but yeah, it's a very lean movie. You don't feel the runtime at all.
No,
So
I
there's
think it's because it's packed so much story of the thematic. It's like three different movies in once, whether you get the terminal disease, the horror element, and the love story. So it all gels so perfectly.
yeah, and it
I
gets
think it's
it.
probably a lot as well.
Yeah, and it gets right to it as well. Like when we start the
Mm.
movie, we're right there in the middle of a conversation between Seth and Ronnie, and we just get right to it.
Well, let me tell you, I watched the film yesterday that they're all raving about. I'm not mentioning its name, and at the end of it, I went, "What?" I said, "That's just a remake of such and such," and it
Uh-huh.
took way too long to start. And I hate that. I hate it's like Ghostbusters, the last Ghostbusters. It took forever to get freaking started,
Yeah,
and then 20 minutes later, it's over. No, if it's gonna take you that long, and I know studios are only looking money and everything else of anything to put anything out to get money, but you gotta have a credible story, I think,
yeah.
and you don't want padding.
And I also like when you watch some of these older films, it kind of highlights that a lot of the modern stuff, they're afraid to cut out scenes, just leave stuff out. Like
Mm.
they're afraid to say that's not working. We'll cut it out from the film. Because I think a lot of movies these days are a lot longer than they need to be.
Oh, way. We'll talk about the other one off air, but it's
Yeah,
way too long. Way too long. But you
absolutely.
look at the old movies as well, like The Fly, uh, The Thing from Another World, The Monolith Monsters, Tarantula, one of my favorites. It's over and that's it. The blue oh what happened? They blew up the spiders. Clint Eastwood actually I was one of his first roles as a fighter pilot who blew up the giant tarantula,
Wow.
and that's it. It's over. There's
Yeah.
no like end wrap up scene, and then the film's just that's it. Bang bang bang. It's over.
No epilogue.
No epilogue at all. You're lucky you get titles at the end.
Do you know what? I've never seen Tarantula.
Oh, Trance is awesome. It's a bit. Remember we were talking about Sting.
Yeah.
There's the scene about coming out of the glass jar. Folks, you should listen to our Sting podcast as well. It was very good. And the Final Destinations, just a quick plug. Um, that's when I was saying there was references in Sting to lots and lots of stuff. Tarantula is probably one of the most iconic ones. And it's a great movie. It's simple and it's scary.
Yeah. What year is that from?
50, 52,
Oh,
maybe.
nice. I'll have to put that on the list for sure. So
But
that concludes The Fly. I hope we have convinced you to go watch it because it really is fantastic. Next week we're talking about another really good remake. Owen, what is that remake?
another one of my personal favorites, The Blob.
The Blob. I love The Blob.
Awesome.
So The Blob, The Fly, and The Thing are great examples of how to do a remake
Yeah, 100%.
for sure. So I'm really
Yeah,
excited to talk about The Blob. I have not seen it in. It must be well.
forever.
must be well over 20 years since I've seen it, to be
Jeepers,
honest.
really.
I
I
I saw it when I was
every
really
month.
young. I saw it a couple of times, and I just haven't seen it in a long time. Never watched it
No,
since,
every
but
month. If I'm writing, for example, I'll have it on the background because it's on YouTube. Um, Tarantula was 1955. Just put that in before we go. But the
nice.
Blob is so. It's just like when we're talking about The Fly. It's built on the original story so well
Mm,
and used the effects, but it's kept the essence
yeah,
of the original.
yeah,
Even the original Fly was about the husband, but there was the brother-in-law, Vincent Price, was in the original, so he was the brother-in-law, and the wife was there, and it was almost like a triangle between the three of them.
yeah.
So this one,
From memory as well, wasn't the original Fly a little bit like a murder mystery?
yeah, yeah,
Um, so yeah, so next we'll be talking about the Blob.
mm,
So that was the Fly. Go watch it. Owen,
awesome.
where can these lovely folks find you and your work?
If you go to the website Time Warriors and Beyond, I'm also on Instagram, Twitter, as Owen Quinn author and Time Warriors author, um, and joining the odd podcast with my young Stephen here is where you'll find me.
Not that young these days, but yeah.
I told somebody I was 37 the day they laughed.
What's that? Sorry.
I told somebody I was 37 the day in the bus they laughing. Say, Specsavers as a sale on, away you go.
Well, someone thought I was 30 years old, so I'll take that.
Oh no, take it, trust me. Take
Yeah,
them.
I'll take it and
Take them when
run.
you can get them. Take them before you do a Seth and bits fall off and noses end up in cupboards in the bathroom.
It's all ahead of me. So there'll be links in the description to Owen's website, the timewarriors.co.uk. If you want to follow me, it's at Stephen Carey Stories on Instagram. And there'll be a link to my horror novel, Gordon Knight Bad Dreams, in the description if you want to go check that out, which I suggest you do. I'm pretty happy with it. Yeah. So how's the Wolves of Chernobyl going, Owen?
I actually sold two copies at the weekend. Which still people will go two copies, yeah, but it was at EasterCon in Belfast
Yeah.
at the weekend. It's from Friday through to Sunday. So there's a lot of people there, a lot of books, all magazines all over the place. So a friend of mine that I write for his magazine kindly offered to put my books on his table. So I gave him a few. I didn't give them all.
Hmm.
Um, and we sold two,
Ah, good
which I
stuff.
thought, well, you know what? Two's better than zero, and you just never know who's gonna pick them up. Hopefully, they'll enjoy them.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're still plugging away and pushing away, and we're still writing the next one when Angel's born.
Perfect. I look forward to that. Okay, thanks once again to Owen. If you like this, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. We'll be doing a lot more horror content down the line. So, subscribe if you don't want to miss out on any of that. And we shall see you again really soon. Bye bye.